Today is Thursday, April 9th, 2026, and the 2025-2026 college basketball season is over. This is Talkin Husky Hoops. I'm Mike Gizzi.
And I'm Jeong.
And welcome back to the 21st episode of Talkin Husky Hoops, where we talk all things UConn men's basketball, from game previews and breakdowns to everything involving Hurley and the men's team. And with that, the end of the road is here, not just for the Huskies, but for the college basketball season. It's been all types of fun and chaos, and created an amazing journey for us throughout the season. But as always, Will, how are you feeling today?
Bittersweet and exhausted. Had a long car ride home from Indianapolis, about 12 hours or so, back to campus. But ultimately, bittersweet. You know, the college basketball season is over in the blink of an eye, like Luther Vandross says in one shining moment. But the Huskies did make it to Indianapolis, so let's get right into it, yeah?
Of course. Last Saturday, the Huskies took down the Fighting Illini in the national semifinal by a final score of 71-62. UConn dominated throughout this matchup, led by a double-double from Terrace Reed Jr., who, despite being outsized by the Illinois center, still found a way to be the leading scorer for the Huskies.
Yeah, on top of that, the outside shooting from hometown kid Braylon Mullins, going 4 for 7 from beyond the arc, seemed to fuel the Connecticut offense right out of the gate. He would go on to finish with 15 for the game, and his only points from not beyond the arc came from that incredible and one layup.
Yeah. A major difference maker in this game for the Huskies would be Silas Demery Jr., who, although only put 7 points on the board, had 9 rebounds and 7 assists. Really goes to show that sometimes your leading scorers aren't the most important to winning games.
Yeah, absolutely. The Huskies would go to thrive from beyond the arc in this game, having just over half of their points come from the three-point range on pretty decent efficiency. I believe it was 36%, which is above their season average.
Yeah, UConn was great with the ball, only turning it over 4 times. Actually, 0 came in the first half, so all those turnovers came in the second half. Almost felt like an announcer jinx because, you know, you were there, but they actually mentioned it about 8 times before they turned over the ball. The Illini offense was led by Keaton Wagler and Tomislav Ivicic with 20 and 16 points respectively, and Illinois really struggled shooting from beyond the arc with only 23%, which is 10 points below their season average.
Yeah, and Illinois has kind of struggled with the Huskies in the past. Over the last 3 seasons, Illinois' 3 fewest scoring point games have come against the Huskies. In the Elite Eight, of course, that infamous game in 2024 when UConn went on their national championship run. Just last November, when the Huskies faced off Illinois in Madison Square Garden, and the Final Four, of course, last Saturday, 52 points, 61 and 62 respectively, the 3 lowest totals.
Yeah, I know we said our last matchup against Illinois wouldn't be a big storyteller for this one, but you know the UConn defense seemed to hold them to around the same thing. Seems like Dan Hurley understands the offense of Illinois, and maybe they have to change some stuff up next time they see them.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, UConn was able to secure their spot in the national championship for its 3rd time in the last 4 years, creating this pre-sentiment that UConn might just be onto a dynasty.
On the other side, the Michigan Wolverines defeated the Arizona Wildcats by a score of 91-73. The Huskies and Wolverines would now meet in the national championship, UConn looking for its 3rd title in the last 4 years, while Michigan looked to end a title drought of 37 years, lasting from before the time of the Fab Five.
But with that, the national championship, Monday, April 6th, the Huskies just came up short in the game against the Michigan Wolverines by a score of 69-63. The Wolverines were led by Final Four most outstanding player Elliot Cadeau, a transfer from North Carolina that pretty much completely turned around his career with this game in this weekend's performance, having 19 points on 5 for 11 shooting, including just one of the 2 3-pointers that the Michigan Wolverines scored all game.
Very uncharacteristic for that team. Yaxel Lendenborg and Merez Johnson Jr. followed in suit for the Wolverines, with 2 big men scoring 13 and 12 respectively. Johnson Jr. particularly staying close to the rim with 10 rebounds and 2 blocks. Alex Karaban led the Huskies in all 40 minutes of the game, sending off his historic Husky career with 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals.
Yeah, continuing on with the Huskies, Terrace Reed Jr. was also kind of challenged by the size of his former team's front court, shooting just 4 from 13 from the floor, but he was still able to have 13 points and 14 rebounds, half of those being offensive.
Braylon Mullins took a little while to get going, however, was able to rack up 11 points and 7 rebounds in what capped his now iconic homecoming. Silas Demery Jr. and Solo Ball each were limited in minutes, both due to foul troubles and lingering injuries, which allowed for Jaden Ross and Malachi Smith to each get about 20 crucial minutes off the bench, scoring all 9 for the reserves. I mean, Malachi Smith, he's had higher scoring games, but I felt, for me at least, this one was definitely a good one to end his Husky career.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of how UConn's offense performs, just about how they've been doing all season long, around like the 60, 70-ish point mark. Nothing overly impressive, kind of just how they've been operating all season. But as predicted, the Wolverines were clear favorites in this contest, with the Huskies having to play a near perfect game and at their speed to win. But they were just able to do that. However, just weren't able to quite get there.
Definitely. I mean, prior to this game, especially against Arizona, the Wolverines had they were utterly dominant throughout this whole tournament, practically waiting to just get the national championship trophy in their hands. 90 points at least every game besides the national championship. UConn's defense definitely did a great job limiting them. Obviously, we spoke about it in the Illinois game. They held Illinois to low amounts of points. They did the same thing with Michigan. And so, I mean, Connecticut has really excelled in a slow, gritty game with around 70 possessions per game as the sweet spot, whereas Michigan likes to ramp up the pace and fly up and down the court.
Yeah, so UConn got the exact game they were looking for. They won the pacing battle. Coach Hurley got precisely the game he wanted for his group. However, they just simply couldn't get it done. You could argue maybe a discrepancy in officiating, whatever. The game ultimately was just decided by the Huskies' inability to make shots and take care of the ball when needed.
You could say if the Huskies started off maybe a bit better in the second half from shooting beyond the arc, this game could look a lot different, and number 7 could be in stores. But, the turnover margin was about even, 11 and 10, UConn having 11. And the Huskies even out-rebounded the Wolverines considerably, 22-12 on offensive rebounds, especially allowing for 13 more shot attempts.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, despite those 13 extra attempts, the Huskies made the same amount of field goals as the Wolverines. And the Wolverines were able to capitalize on that, going to the line for an extra 12 free throw attempts, which really was the discrepancy. They shot 89% from the stripe. They have been pretty efficient in that all year long, and that is just about where the Huskies were able to fall short.
Yeah. The Huskies were able to hold the lead for a chunk of the first half, holding a 25-24 lead with 3 minutes and 16 seconds to go. However, the Wolverines were able to get their rhythm and slowly ramp things up, getting a 4-point lead going into halftime and never giving it up.
Yeah, and that was just about it. If UConn was able to hold a lead going into halftime, maybe they could have looked at things differently. That was probably the most important keystone or checkpoint for Hurley to get there, but they just weren't quite able to. So if you look at a couple opportunities in the second half, like a Silas Demery Jr. layup to cut the lead to 5, I believe it was on like the 8-minute mark, Adaimara responded with an alley-oop dunk. And then look at like an Alex Karaban 3 when the score was 67-63, the final 30 seconds of the game, wasn't able to go down. It's moments like these, just the Huskies were super close, just unable to get over that fence, and Michigan was able to kind of hold their distance and stave off any comebacks.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of opportunities for the Huskies to really, build on momentum that they had gained. For instance, they stole the ball, they had a chance at a fast break layup, and, Solo just ended up botching it. I mean, it wasn't an easy play. Terrace had to kind of throw it behind the back pass, and then it ended up getting contested. But there's just plenty of opportunities that they just couldn't pick up on. And at the end of the day, it was not Connecticut's night. Overall, the game ended with 2 Trey McKinney free throws to get the final score to 69-63. The Huskies falling just short of their dynasty-making 3rd national title in 4 years. Well, what a season it was for the Huskies.
Yes.
Finishing with the 34-6 record. Karaban and Reed would end up making the NCAA All-Tournament team. Great job for them. And it's going to be a new era starting at UConn with, Husky all-time great Alex Karaban heading to the draft along with Terrace Reed Jr.
Yes, Karaban will finish his UConn career as, this is a giant list of accolades, a 2-time national champ, 3-time Final Four appearance as a starter, most wins in UConn history, most games played in UConn history, most three-pointers made in UConn history, over 1,800 points, which lands him 6th all-time as a Husky, an 18-2 record in March Madness, which is one of the highest of, at least modern history, with his number retired in the Huskies of Honor. Truly just an absolutely incredible career from him.
Yeah. On top of that, we're not sure on freshman Braylon Mullins just yet, as there's no real answer if he's going to come back for his sophomore year. Could he head off with Karaban and Reed to the NBA? Or could he, try and build on his legacy started this year at UConn and come back and maybe want some redemption and get another shot in the national championship.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. Unfortunately, the Huskies will lose Dwayne Caroma, Alec Millender, and Malachi Smith as they no longer have any eligibility remaining. And of course, they're also going to have to say bye to assistant coach Luke Murray, who recently signed with Boston College to become their next head coach. So wishing all of them the best of luck.
Yeah, it's the end of an era. Definitely
Yes.
tear-inducing. So thank you, Dwayne Caroma. Thank you, Alec Baby Rondo Melender. Thank you, Malachi Smith. Thank you, Luke Murray. Thank you, Terrace Ray Jr. Thank you, Alex Caravan. And thank you, 2025-2026 UConn Huskies, for a great season and the journey of a lifetime. But overall, thank you for watching this episode of Talkin Husky Hoops. That's not it for us. We will be back because the transfer portal just opened. So we have more to talk about at some point in the future. Transfer portal, draft news, and, potential roster moves for the Huskies heading into next season. Though for now, I'm Mike Gizzi.
And I'm Will John, UCTV Sports.
Go
Huskies.